What's going on, gals and guys? Ryan from Thread Chemistry back with you for another video. Today we are going to do a patch from beginning to end. I noticed on YouTube I couldn't really find a lot of videos on how to make your own patches. I know there are a lot out there that they say how to make your own patches, so on and so forth. However, a lot of them, most of them, were all take this blank patch, which they're trying to sell their blank pre-made patches. All you have to do is put it in the embroidery machine, embroider out your design onto that patch. Well, I wanted to make my own from start to finish. So I figured out how to do that. I did some research and I wanted to forward it on to you guys. So anyway, let's get started. We're over here at the workbench. I'm gonna pull out everything that we need throughout this whole process. We'll go over that and then we will start step by step. So let's head over to the workbench behind me. All right, guys, so here we are. We have everything here that we need. First off, of course, we do need our hoop for the embroidery machine. Oh, one thing that is not here is the embroidery machine. I couldn't quite fit that on my workbench. So we'll get over there in a second though. But anyway, what we have is our twill. I bought this off Stahls.com. This is a white uncoated twill. We will actually use 2 layers of this. We do have our thermo-adhesive. This is the adhesive or the glue basically that goes on the back of the patch in order to help it stick to the hat, which we also have our hat. Our customer picked out these Richardson 112s. Pretty cool hats. But anyway, this is the hat that we're gonna be putting our patch on. So we have that. We do have our scissors. We do have a lighter and or a soldering tool. That's what this is. I will explain what we would do with this later. This or the lighter. You can kind of use either or. I prefer to use the soldering tool, but I'll tell you why in a little bit. I do already have a piece of, this is no-show fusible mesh stabilizer. And then I have another piece of cutaway stabilizer, a very thicker cutaway. Those two I already cut out for the size of the hoop that we are using. I am using the 160 size hoop. So that is our fusible. Remember, on the fusible, there is a slick side. I don't want to say a slick side, but a smooth side. And then there is a rough side. The rough side is the fusible side. That is the side that we will adhere to our twill. But we'll get to that in a second also. So we do have those 2 cut out. Now what I want to do is I want to cut out 2 pieces of our twill that are going to match the size of our cutaway stabilizer and our fusible. Everything will be uniform, but we do need 2 pieces of the twill. By the way, Fiskars scissors, they are the best scissors. If you're using it for anything like this, or for anything, make sure to buy Fiskars scissors. They are expensive, but they're worth it. All right, now we are done with our twill. We can go ahead and put that away. Next up is our thermal adhesive. Typically, you would cut this after you have the patch done because you need to know what size it is. Since I do have one patch done already, I'll just go ahead and cut it out now so we have everything laid out that we need. So I'm just gonna cut a piece a little bit bigger than the actual patch itself. Like so. So just about the size of a rectangle patch. If you have a circle patch, you would cut a circle out, a triangle, you would cut out a triangle. And that will be the rest of the thermo adhesive that we will need. So we can go ahead and put that away. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna take one of our pieces of our twill that we just cut out and our 1 piece of fusible mesh that we cut out. Remember, the rough side is the side that we want to put on the twill. The twill, it's kind of your preference. It does have a shinier side and a bit duller side. If you can kind of see that, this side is a bit shinier. I like to use the dull side. I always ask the customer. Typically the dull side is more of a preference. The shiny side is almost just a little bit too much. So I'm gonna go ahead and use the dull side, which means I will put the bumpy side of the fusible mesh down on the shiny side of the twill. And now we are gonna head over to the heat press. All right guys, here we are at the heat press. I have it at 310 degrees. 300 works just fine. I have it at a 4 pressure or a medium, and we are gonna press this together for 8 to 10 seconds. I'm gonna lay it down on the platen, take the cover sheet, and we are done. That quick. Now, as you can see, the fusible mesh is fused to the twill. Pretty crazy how that works. All right, so that's it with that. So now we're gonna go back over to the workbench. Now we are gonna take our piece of twill and fusible. We're gonna grab our hoop. We're just gonna place it right on top of that bottom part of the hoop. And we are going to just connect our hoop together. Make sure it's nice and tight. If you don't have mighty hoops, hope to have some soon, but for now, we have these. They work just as well. Just make sure that they are tight and that you can beat it like a drum. So we're good, guys. So now we're gonna go ahead and head over to the embroidery machine, get our placement stitch stitched out, and then we will be back here to cut that out and get moved on to our second piece of twill with the cutaway stabilizer. So let's head over to the embroidery machine and get that done. All right, guys, so we're over at our embroidery machine. We have our twill hooped with our fusible no-show mesh stabilizer. We're gonna stick our hoop on in. Make sure, again, it's still nice and tight, your hoop's on correct. And next, what we're gonna do, we have our patch design already loaded up. I'm gonna go ahead and get my colors chosen real quick. So our placement stitch is black. Our border is black. Our 3 triangles are forest green. Our 1 triangle is baby blue. Our navigator logo is black. Our heartland is navy. And our greenway is forest green. All right, so we have our colors chosen. You can do that on the next step, or you can do that now. I like to make sure that I have the colors chosen right away so I don't forget to do it when we come back, because we will have to just, all we're gonna do right now is place our placement stitch, take it back over to the workbench, so we'll get that going. If you are digitizing your own designs, you always wanna place a placement stitch on this method, my method. If you're following my method, make sure you place a placement stitch. You can either place it at the beginning of the patch, or you can do a separate digitization of a placement stitch and then your patch design. So you could have 2 different files basically. Or you can do it like this, like I have it, which is 1. I just go ahead and place the placement stitch. I'll stop the machine. We'll take it over to the workbench. We'll cut it out. And then we'll actually start over the design when we come back. So it's just a little bit easier to just have one design for me personally. If you're doing multiple patches, if you're doing a layout of patches on a much larger hoop, then you might be able to consider doing a separate file of just placement stitches. That way you don't have to keep skipping colors, because you're gonna have to place a placement stitch, skip ahead, placement stitch. I have another video of that. I will try and get edited and uploaded soon for you guys so you can check out how to do multiple patches on a single run. But for now, we're focusing on one. So let's just go ahead and get this going. All right, so first what we wanna do is we wanna make sure that our air view, I guess I call it, it'll do a non-stitch around where it's going to be stitching, so you make sure that you're within the borders of your hoop so you're not hitting anything on it. So we're gonna go ahead and do that. I like to push it down to make sure, and I think that's gonna be perfect. All right, so now all we're going to do is hit the start button and get our placement stitch going. Now we're gonna hit the stop button. And that is all we're gonna do on this step. So now let's go ahead and take our hoop out, and we're gonna head back over to the workbench with this. All right, guys, there we go. So we got our placement stitch finished. What we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and take this out of the hoop now. One reason I like to do multiple patch stitch outs is because if you're doing singles, it ends up being a lot of waste, and I'll show you why. So all we're gonna take is our pretty bent scissors, I think these are made specifically for embroidery. They are just curved a little at the end, makes it much easier to cut as close as you can to that stitching. We're gonna go ahead and just cut this out. I like to always cut past any rounded angles and then go back and finish it. And there we have it. We have our first piece finished. So one of the reasons why I said I like to do multiple patches at once is because, as you can see, this is all we need out of all of that. And we're actually going to be using another piece of twill with the cutaway stabilizer, and we're going to be stitching out our patch on this one, which we will also be cutting out. So you can see how much waste it really is when you're doing one stitch, unless you can find something to use this for. I have yet to figure out what to use any of this for. If anybody has any ideas or suggestions, please leave them down below in the comments. I would appreciate it if anybody has anything, but for now it's garbage to us. So that's one thing unfortunate about doing single patches, but it is what it is. So anyway, we have our cutout. We're going to keep this with us now. Okay, so we're going to take our hoop again. We are going to take our cutaway stabilizer. One thing I forgot in the beginning of everything we needed was 505 temporary adhesive spray. Do not forget to have this. We will actually use this a couple different times. So one of those times is right now. So we're going to give it a good shake. And all we're going to do is spray the back of this cutaway stabilizer like so. And we are just, again, we are going to take the dull side up and we are just going to put it right down on that piece of cutaway stabilizer. Another thing, if you're using white, make sure to wash your hands constantly. You will ruin the patches immediately if you don't have clean hands. All right, so now what we're going to do is we are just going to use the same hoop and we're going to go ahead and hoop this. If you wanted to be proactive, I do have 2 of every hoop. You could have done this previously and had this ready to go actually, but for the sake of the video, all you want to do is hoop it the exact same way, make sure it's nice and tight, and we're beating on drums. We're going to grab our placement cutout, our 505 temporary adhesive spray, and our hoop and head over to the embroidery machine. All right guys, here we are. All we're going to do is snap our new piece of fabric in, make sure it's tight. Now what we're going to do is we're going to start our patch design completely over, so it will stitch out another placement stitch, and at that point we are going to stop it again, and I'll show you what to do then. First, let's get a air view and see what we got. There we go. Now we are just going to hit the start button and start it from scratch. Now we want to stop it. Okay, at this point, what you want to do, remember our cutout, we're going to take that, make sure to have the twill side up. All right, so we're going to take our 505 temporary adhesive. We're going to take a piece of just a basic paper towel. This is a little trick I like to do to try and avoid some of this spray from getting gunked up in the needles and whatnot. So basically it's just kind of a cover to cover everything up for right now. What we're going to do is we're going to spray inside that rectangle. Just like so. Now you can remove the paper towel. Now we're going to take our twill cutout that we have, and on the back of it where the fusible no-show mesh stabilizer is, we're just going to give another spray with our temporary adhesive. Like so. Now we're going to take that and we're going to place it right inside, like we did when we were in kindergarten, you know, place the square in a square, put the circle through the circle. It's the same thing. Just try and place it right inside placement stitch as close as you can. Line it up as best you can, like so. And now all we're going to do is we're going to continue the patch design and let it finish up. So we're going to go ahead and hit start. It's going to do a zigzag stitch here, which will combine our cutout with the hoop material. And there it is, guys. Now, what we're gonna do is we're gonna pop it out. We're gonna take it over to our workbench again and get this cut out. So let's head back over to the workbench. Now we have our patch, which is finished. Remember, we cut out our first layer, you could call it, and we placed it on top. So right here, we actually have a layer of the thermal adhesive, the twill, the cutaway, and another layer of the twill right here. So we're just gonna go ahead and we're gonna cut out as close as we can around the edges of this one. Make sure when you're doing this that you're cutting as close as you can to the thread, but obviously not cutting the thread because it will spark up little white spots. So here we are, we have our patch cut out. Now you could end here, it is pretty decent, but if you have two contrasting colors, like here for example, we have the white twill and then we have black stitching, it does show that white around the border. It does stand out a lot more since we're using a black or a white on black. So this is where the lighter and the soldering tool come in play. This garbage, again, unless anybody knows what to reuse this for, another piece of wasted twill and cutaway, unfortunately. But anyway, what I like to do, I do like to use the soldering tool, but if you do not have one of these, you can take a lighter and be very careful when you're doing this because you can get soot from the lighter and it will ruin your white twill. So I just take it and I very gently and quickly go along the bottom, and you can see it does help. Now you see, you can hardly see any of that white, but you still can see a little bit. That's why I like to use this. Again, it's a soldering tool. I'm just gonna turn it on, lock it on. It does take a second to get hot, but be very careful. You can see where it's getting red right there. It's heating up the edge of this. It's not hot yet, but that will get extremely, extremely hot. And what you wanna do, I like to have a little stability, so I do it down here, is I just gently touch the white and go all the way around it. Nice and easy. And bam, turn that off. Make sure to keep that away from anybody. I like to recap it. So anyway, like that. So there it is, as you can see, now we have a nice clean border, no white showing whatsoever, and our patch is done. Now we're going to go ahead and get our, remember our thermal adhesive, we're gonna take that and we are going to press it. With the thermal adhesive, you have two sides. You have a shiny side, you can see right there, and a dull side. So we're gonna take our shiny side, that is where the glue is. We're gonna place it on the back of our patch, obviously, and we're gonna head over to the heat press. All right guys, here we are at the heat press. I like to use 2 pieces of cover paper or parchment paper works also that I dedicate to using for just this, because as you can see, this thing gets some wear and tear, and I'm not sure if you can see it, but there are little glue spots on it. So obviously you want to use a cover sheet so you don't get it on your silicone pad, and then you want to use this only for this purpose so you don't transfer that glue onto another shirt or something that you do next time. And I'll also use a new one every so often, because when you press these, also you want to press with the patch face down. Some of that glue that you might not always see will press right onto your patch and you'll ruin it. So what I do now is just find kind of a new spot that doesn't have, I mean, you can see this one has all those indentations of old patches. It's got burn marks, it's got rips, it's got some mileage to it. So it's about ready to retire, but we'll get a couple more out of it. So anyway, we're gonna take, remember, the shiny side down on top of our patch with our patch face down onto the heat press. And we're gonna take another piece of cover sheet paper, parchment paper also works. We're at 300, 310, medium pressure. I have it set on 4 on here. And we're gonna do this for 8 to 10 seconds also. So there we have it. Now all we're gonna do, I've seen people who tear this off cold. I like to tear it off hot. I don't, it's just quicker, I guess. I don't know if one way is better than the other, but I just tear it off hot. And I like to kind of get as much of that adhesive off as possible. There we got the whole section off. That way when you tear it off, you're not tearing any of the adhesive off that might be around the edges, because you definitely want adhesive there. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take a scissors and I'm gonna cut this surrounding area and we're gonna clean that up. Back at the workbench one more time. We're just gonna take our scissors, cut off that excess adhesive. You can tear it off also. I just like to leave it clean cut. Again, if you tear it, you have a chance of tearing extra off that you want to have around the outside. Make sure you get all of it off though, because that will show on the hat. And voila, now we have our patch, and you can see the adhesive is on the back there.
Took me a while. I had to rethread it. Here's another one though. I'll let you inspect.
So now that we have the thermal adhesive on the back, we're gonna take our patch with our hat and we're gonna now head over to the hat press. All right guys, here we are at the hat press. I'm gonna go ahead and take out the hat insert. We're gonna fold down the sweatband. Always remember to do that. I have my hat press set at 310 up top and 300 on the bottom. If you have the IQ 360, you do have the option of heating the lower platen as well as the upper platen, which is great. I do believe it's one of their patents on this heat press. Love this heat press made by Stahls. So we're gonna go ahead, fold out our sweatband, put our hat on, lower our little lever there that tightens the hat. So from here, you can either work it in a little bit. With these Richardsons, they do have such a stiff structure on the front. What I like to do is I will take it and I will actually lower the platen I won't even click the magnet. I'll just lower it for a couple seconds to heat up that structure so we can work it a little bit. So it loosens it up a little bit just so we have no bubbles in there at all. We are flat on there. Now we're gonna take our patch that we just made, remember with the adhesive, obviously adhesive side down. We're gonna place that right on top. We're gonna take a piece of heat tape, tack that baby down, and now we have another piece of cover sheet that we will place right on top. And like I said, I have the upper platen at 310, the lower platen at 300. I have the pressure at medium. I have it set at a 4 on this one, and we are gonna press this for 15 seconds. Bada bing, bada boom. We now have a perfectly adhered patch to our hat. All right guys, so there it is. We just made a patch from start to finish with our Stahls Twill, remember, and then we added the thermal adhesive, which we also got from Stahls. All of this stuff I will link in the description for you guys, so you guys can check that out. So you can stop there if you would like. What I tend to do is I will stop there if they're my own hats. If I'm making them for personal use, I'll go ahead and stop there. However, if they are for customers, which they are, I go one step further. They do recommend you do this. I also have not found many videos that actually tell you this, or many places that tell you this, The adhesive does keep it in place, but if you want to be 100%, that patch is never going to fall off again. I actually have my mother, who is inside right now, sewing on the last of these few hats. She actually sews the corners down. So if you look inside of these, you can actually see where she sewed the 4 corners. And if you look on the actual hat, you cannot see them you might be able to see right there. You see at the top there? That's where she sewed it down. And then on the bottom there, but you would never be able to tell if I didn't tell you. So that just guarantees that it's definitely not going anywhere. I like to be certain about it. You can buy sewing machines that are actually made for that. A leather sewing machine actually works for it. Oh, I believe it is called a bedpost roller foot sewing machine. Basically, it has a high presser foot and it has a lifted bottom section. Basically, so you can get a hat in there with a higher presser foot, you're able to sneak your hat in there much easier. And then the bottom section is lifted, so you're able to get your hat on there and the bottom section isn't getting caught anywhere. I do not have one of those. My mom is actually using a regular sewing machine, and she just kind of flattens the hat and she puts it under the presser foot and then goes to town with it. That part I have no clue about. That's why we have mothers. So if you want to know any more about that, ask her. No, if you would like to see how she does it, please leave a comment down below. I'll make a quick video of her doing that. But anyway, guys, that basically does it. We are finished with our patch from start to finish. I hope you guys like it. I hope it helped you guys out. You guys have any comments, questions, suggestions, please leave them down below. Hit that like and subscribe button if you will, please. But I think that will do it for today, guys. So again, I appreciate you as always. Until next time, guys, peace.